Not sure what scope color I want to use. That's the real question.
I'm just using red, but that's just like I don't catch, like my eyes don't catch the other colors.
The issue is that everyone in CG is red, so you definitely don't want to be red. You want to be a color that stands out, basically. Because like on maps like Cafe, Skyscraper, Club, you can't see your scope half the time.
I think purple is best from standing out point. Cause
yeah, like, nothing's purple.
Yellow, yeah, I think like greenish is a lot of things, and then yellow is way too close to white. Maybe dark blue could work, but that could be too dark in black areas. So I think purple is maybe the best. I'll try it out.
Also, if he has a 2.0 scope up, that's basically ACOG.
It's just that I like the arrow. There's no arrow.
Yeah.
Data here.
It is definitely concerning that certain operators have certain scopes, because then you almost want to pick the operator with the right scope more than the right operator.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then it's more about, then it's not about balancing gadgets anymore, it's about balancing the scope.
Pretty sure they haven't changed anything in that regard. Legion with a 1.5 is gonna be nasty, dude. Was it Mirror that got, or Goyo Mirror that got like a 2.0 or 1.5x in the Vector? Yeah, 1.5 as well. What does G8 have? Oh, G8 doesn't have the long scope. Fuck. And then I guess the Commando does. Yep. Did they give the AUG the ACOG then? Oh, they did, dude. I called it. It made sense, because now, like, if you don't have an ACOG on IQ, you gotta play the AUG, the worst gun of the three. If you don't play the other gun in Commando, you get a 1.5, and G8 only has 1.0. So it kind of makes sense. For sure, G8 Amaro has ACOG? Yeah, but I'm just talking about IQ. Amaro is a whole different talk. It would kind of make sense if Amaro... Yeah, Amaro has it, look. So they basically made the distinguishment between Amaro and IQ now, which was something that we wanted for a long time. And then I think Rook and Dog, they did the same thing. Like, one of them has a better scope. Like, Dog has 1.5 only, and I think Rook has a 2.0. Yeah, so for like Rook now has a different scope than... It's really weird to me. It feels like a very cheap FPS scope. Like a Chinese shooter.
Yeah.
Bad as it might sound, like I feel like all the free like Japanese, Asian FPS games would have that scope. This scope is really nice actually. I kind of wish that this was a new red dot for every operator. Like, why do we have the old red dot and this red dot? You know what I mean? No one's gonna want to play the old red dot after this.
30 seconds remaining.
I have a genuine question. Why do they have different hollows?
30 seconds until bomb.
Yeah, and different red dot. Like the new red dot is insane. Like it's what red dot should be.
Why not just have one? It's like the whole Russian.
That's what I said. Like, try and play Thatcher L8 and split red dot, and tell me that red dot should be the normal red dot. That's what red dot should have been like. How am I kidding?
Yeah, this new red dot is nice.
It's so nice. It's so nice.
I'm gonna try it.
I do agree that I think they should mainstream the scopes, because you shouldn't have one red dot on one operator, then another red dot on another operator. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't get that part. All right, so we have a document. What else are we adding to this document, chat? We're adding streamline scopes. Make new red dot. The only red dot. What else did we just learn? Jukebox. Adding of jukebox. Radio. / audio clutter needs to stop. It needs to stop. Why streamline it? Because why do we have two different red dots? And certain operators have it and some don't. Like, why does Pulse have the new red dot? Or like, same with the holo. Some operators have this holo scope, and then some operators have the old holo scope. And they don't give us the option to change it. There's no way to say, oh, I don't like this holo. So if you don't like the scope, you cannot play Pulse. You need to play someone else with a holo. Like, it would be funny if Castle had it, actually. Wouldn't that be funny? The wrong thing. Oh, Isn't that funny? So if you like the old holo, you play castle, and if you like the new holo, you play pulse. Like what the fuck is that? Like, why does, like, it makes no sense. It makes literally no sense. Like, I don't get it. I don't get that part at all. Because the scope is something that impacts your performance. You can't just force people to play reflex, right? That's why we have options. If you don't give us the option to change the holo, so you can choose, like, imagine it if every single holo you could choose between this holo and the old holo, and with the red dot you can choose this red dot or the old red dot. That would be fucking insane, because we're just getting new scopes for free with no effort. And if we don't like them, we can go back to the old one. But now we're just getting thrown this in our face with no way of going back. I need to play red dot or reflex now on pulse, which doesn't make any sense, because I don't like this holographic. It's way too big. That's why they should streamline them. So yeah, streamline scopes give us option to use old/new. Why does, like, pulse has one holo but castle has the other, right? That one might scope is ugly. This is new holo scope, chat, and you're forced to play with it on some operators. For example, pulse only has that holo scope. Pulse does not have the old holo scope anymore. But you know who does? Castle. Castle has that scope. So if you want to play the, you know, UMP, you gotta not play pulse. So pulse has the old red dot and the old reflex, which are both very poor scopes, and there's a new holo, which is bad. But if you play castle, who has the same weapon, you have the 1.5x, the old holo, old red dot, and old reflex. And I don't like this at all, personally. I think it's very, 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 very weird, because it's almost like you need to pick certain operators to play certain scopes now, which is not really how I see the game should be playing. Like, I think picking a scope like an ACOG, it makes sense to pick certain operators, right? But a holo is just a 1x scope like any other scope. It's just like the reticle that's different, and the reticle is a very personal approach. It doesn't make any sense to have 1x scopes being forced into certain reticles. Imagine CSGO, if the AK had one crosshair, the M4 had a second crosshair, but the AWP has a third crosshair, the USP has a fourth, the Glock has a fifth, the Deagle's a seventh. Like, that's not how CSGO is either. And why you can't balance with the, because this is a opinion. Either you like this scope or you don't like this scope. It's not a matter of balance. It's not like this holographic scope is scientifically better by 20%. It's a matter of, do you like the visuals? Do you like the size, the obstruction? I like the chassis. Like, I like the casing, like this part right here. I think that's cool. But I don't like the actual purple dot with two lines. And like, the dot is too thick, the lines obstruct my vision. I'd rather just have it be a clean red dot that's smaller.
Down to 5 seconds.
I'd rather have that. I don't like the two lines. Like, it's weird. So this is not a balancing tool at all. Yeah, I don't really understand what the logic is behind it either, because, oh, Jaeger's too strong. Let's give him a bad holo scope to make him worse. Like, Shaiko only plays holo on Hibana. He doesn't care that Hibana loses ACOG. But some Hibana players play ACOG and they care. It's gonna be a matter of, like, who happens to enjoy a certain scope. And that's not really good. So I think they're good ideas in theory. It's just the way they execute it is probably a little bit iffy. And this is again where I wish they would have consolidated with something like pro players or people that like for balancing purposes, because I don't think it makes any sense to give Pulse a different holographic scope by force. Just like with Clash, you know how Clash's gun, it always had red dot and you couldn't change it, and then one patch they made it only reflex, like it has a default reflex scope since like 2 patches ago. Why? Why can't I choose to play red dot on Clash? Because I don't like playing reflex. And I've been forced into red dot for like a year, or more than a year. And then all of a sudden, now I'm forced into reflex since Kali got the gun. Why can't I play both? Why can't I choose, right? Because that's the scary part. Imagine you cannot play reflex. Imagine that for some reason, you're colorblind to green. but you are a professional player and you need to play Clash. And you can't see your scope. Well, thank God you now have this scope color, right? Because I assume that... Wait, does that... I assume that also works for Reflex, right? Because Reflex is not bad default green, but I assume that's the same. But before that, you didn't have that choice. And it's always good to give people a choice. I think it's really good that the game has scopes. I think it's great that we have, you know, a holo, a red dot, a reflex. But I don't think it's good that Pulse will have this holo, and then his counterpart, same exact weapon, has the old holo. Because it's the same gun. It doesn't really make logical sense. I think it's fine that Pulse has the, or sorry, that Castle has a 1.5x scope, because you could argue that Castle should be stronger than Pulse, because Pulse's gadget is better than Castle's in terms of lethality. Like, that's been a long going conversation. But why don't we give Pulse and Castle both holographic scopes? Why doesn't Pulse and why doesn't Castle have the new red dot scope? Why do they have the old red dot scope? Because if you didn't know, there's a new red dot scope on something like Thatcher. And it looks like this. It has this little cogwheel down here. And this red dot scope is probably the best scope in the entire game, in my opinion. Like 1x. It's I would play that instead of the holographic. It's all a preference and a mental placebo. It's not placebo, no. It's not placebo at all. It's not a placebo whether you like something or not. Like, you don't like a certain scope because in your head, like the triangle for us, the reflex. When you play reflex scope, right? Your bullet goes here at the tip of your scope. When you play holo, right? Your bullet goes center. So obviously it's not placebo. Like, my brain will always aim center mass. That's how my brain recognizes shooting. But when you play the reflex scope, it's not center mass. Your bullet goes at the tip of the triangle, not the center of the triangle. So you need to aim at the neck with the center to get a headshot. If you aim at the head with the triangle tip, you miss. You shoot above them. That's not placebo, it's preference. Our brains perceive motions on recoil and scopes and depth differently. That's why some people like certain scopes and certain aspect ratios and certain play styles for that matter as well. Some people are good at angle holding, some people are good at peeking aggressively. We're all different.
You've located a bomb. Make your way to
You can't force people into playing shitty scopes and then have those scopes on other operators when they're all the 1x zoom. There's no zoom difference. It's not a balancing tool. If they're all 1x scopes, it's only a preference visually, which shouldn't matter. Like, you should have all accessibility, that's what I mean. It does matter in that case.
10 seconds.
Only zoom scope should be used for balancing. Yes! Yes! Thank you. I agree. Only zoom scopes, because that's the only relevance and difference, should be used for balancing. You shouldn't be like, oh, Jaeger's pick rate is pretty high. Let's take away the regular holo and give him a new one because that one sucks. Haha. No. No, you don't. ACOG you can remove as a matter of, like, factual, like, power performance. Not the fucking 1x. This isn't a reference to your previous point, but why add new scopes? I think, honestly, I think adding new scopes is a good thing. It's more exciting. Like, again, I've been playing the game for 5 years. We've never had a new scope, except for, like, you know, the kite pistol scope and the LMG scope that Capital has and stuff. This is very exciting. Is it necessarily a good thing? I don't know yet. Maybe not. But it does give Ubisoft more tools to balance. However, I don't think it's the right way to balance. I don't think you should be like I think Maestro's the perfect example. Maestro lost his ACOG. Sure, you can't challenge from a million miles away anymore, but the gun still has the same issues as before. Right? Some pros played Maestro with holo and didn't even play ACOG to begin with, and it's the same. You shouldn't really be using scope as a tool of balancing. And I don't think adding more scopes will make it easier for the developers. I think it'll actually make it a lot more difficult, because instead of having 3 options now, or 4 with ACOG, you're gonna have, what, 7 or 8? Depending on how you look at it. That I don't know. I feel like it's not the right decision. Exactly, Ace. It's like Shaiko never used ACOG on Hibana. He uses holo. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't think it's the right decision. I think this adds more complexity than... I can't vault this. I can vault this though. Okay. Whatever. Thankfully, Jaeger has the old holo. Also, Jaeger gets a new red dot. That's huge. Watch this new red dot. This new red dot. So this is my point. This new red dot should become the normal red dot, in my opinion. I mean, you can keep them both on every operator. That's fine. But look at this. It's so good. This is what the red dot should always have been. It's a small circle. It's not this. There's a reason why almost nobody uses red dot. It's a literal disadvantage because the dot is bigger than people's head. So you can't see people when you shoot at them. Like, that's an actual fact. And this red dot is kind of what red dot should have always been. Like, this is a great change.
Protect the bombs.
Look at that. A tiny, centered dot. It's what the normal red dot should have been forever ago. And if you don't like it, there is still the old red dot, just not on Jaeger. But this is really nice. I'm not gonna lie. Every game changes a lot of things which are favorable for new players playing for fun. So think how this update would impact you if you're a new fun player loving instead of a competitive player. All right, Japan. I'm gonna tell you how to enjoy it. I'm gonna pick Castle, right, as a new player, right? And I'm gonna be like, oh, I like this 1.5x scope. UMP has a 1.5x scope. Oh, I like this holo scope on Castle. I like it a lot. Then next round I pick Pulse because Pulse has UMP 5. And I like the UMP 5 because it has the old holo scope and the 1.5x scope. But then all of a sudden, Pulse doesn't have 1.5x scope and he has a different holo scope. How is that fun as a new player? You don't understand what scopes are and what operators are for what reason. It doesn't make any sense. I've played the game for 5 years. I'm played in Poly for 5 years almost. I don't understand how it works. How would a new player understand how it works? They have no idea how it works.
I believe so.
I don't think this is good for the casual players at all. If you could choose on every single character what red dot, what holo, and what reflex, there's only one reflex scope, right? If you could choose which version you could play, that makes sense. Is that not a way to balance a high damage gun to limit its view, make it clunky at close range? Yeah, but no one's playing DMRs already. It doesn't make any sense you're forcing DMR players to be a 3.0 scope because there's this thing called preference. You know how Hibana has an ACOG and Shaiko plays only holo? Or my teammate Ben, he only plays holo on attack. He doesn't want to play ACOG. That's a preference. And if you're taking away the ACOG, you're buffing the players who didn't like it anyway and nerfing the players that did. Because it's a preference and playstyle choice. Right? And when you give a DMR a 3.0 scope, you basically force people who play DMRs to only play that scope. And if they don't like the scope, they're fucked. Right? If the new holo on Pulse, which is the dot and 2 lines, I don't want to play that scope. So I'm now forced to play fucking reflex or red dot, which I hate. Right? So I can't play Pulse and enjoy it anymore because my preference in scope is ruined. I should have all the 1x scopes to choose between because it doesn't give you a difference besides just visuality. Obviously the scopes are in Final Hand, obviously. But I still think that it's concerning how they manage to distribute it. Just like the new operator has a reload bug. It took me 1 second to figure that out. It's concerning that these things are an issue. You know, like, I think they should have released the game with every operator having the same 1x scope because that makes sense. And I feel like it's very obvious that the feedback they're gonna get is going to be give every single operator 1x scopes. Because who wouldn't want that? And I actually ran a test, a vote on Twitter. And an astonishing 93.7% out of almost 20,000 people said yes, every single operator should have every single 1x scope. And I kind of figured it'd be 90 to 10. It's 94 to 10. Or 94 to 6 rather. And I feel like that's like you don't need a statistic for that. You could just think about it, be like, yeah, that's gonna happen. You know?